So during what time period did you live on Park Street?
Pardon?
During what time period did you live on Park Street?
What time?
Yeah, so from what year to when?
Goodness, I don't remember right now. I'd have to look back.
Okay.
Do you remember when you bought your house?
I'm,
Do you remember when you
well,
bought
I
your
can't
house?
remember. I would probably have records of it because I have pictures of it. We took
Okay.
pictures of before and after because it was a junkyard. That was a lot, well, it wasn't a junkyard, but it was lots of junk in it.
It was junk in
People
it,
were
yeah.
throwing their trash. The house hadn't been lived in for a long time. So, but the neighbors all came in. Al and all the Hineses and all the neighbors came in and helped me clean that house because it hadn't been lived in for quite a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And but it had been a beautiful house. I think I told you it'd been moved. Had been moved, and Mrs. Hines said she remembers that house coming up on railroad ties and horses. They had the house sitting on railroad ties and ropes around them and horses. And they pulled that house all the way from where the stadium is now, that lot, all the way to Park Street on railroad ties and horses. And so the neighbors had the history of that house.
Yeah, when you talk to Ray Hines,
Mhm.
he'll probably be able to tell you a little bit
Yeah,
more.
he could tell me.
Okay.
And then I don't know how many days it took them because the streets weren't, the Park Street was paved, but all the streets out there weren't paved because that was out in the country then, you know. And so but that's how far. And the lady, after I got the house cleaned up, because all the neighbors came in and helped me clean it up and paint, repair, redo the floors, and then I had open house. And I advertised it. I wanted everybody to come in and see what, because it was called, this lady said it was, they called it the lost house. They knew the house had been moved from the stadium, but they didn't know where it had, they knew that the house hadn't been torn down, but they didn't know where it went. So when I put this invitation in the paper and told about the house, people came from all over. And the lady that had formerly lived in the house, she came and knocked on the door one day, and I opened the door and she started screaming. She said, "My house, my house, my house." And I thought, the old lady's crazy. And she said, "You know, I used to live in this house." Her husband was a professor. She said, "I used to live in this house." And from then on, you know, we got to be very good friends. She was so happy. She said, "This is my house." I said, "Well, it's my house now."
Do you remember her name?
Yes, her name was, well, I'll think of it in a minute. I can see her just as plain, because she opened the door and she just ran in, and I thought, what in the world, this woman's crazy. Oh, what was her name? Well, I'll think of it, I'll call you, because I
Okay.
have it down currently. In fact, when I had the first tea, when neighbors came in and helped me clean the house and fix it up, and the bank loaned me money, and I can't think of her name. I can see her just as plain. But when I finished cleaning up the house and getting the yard and trees planted, I had open house every Sunday. You don't remember that, you weren't born then. I had open house every Sunday because people, they called it the lost house. They knew it had been moved, but they didn't know what had happened to it. So I've had a lot of happy memories. And then I kept students. Well, Lewis and I started after the war. There were 5 boys that came here. There was no place for Negroes. Few places on the campus for Negroes to stay. And
I think there was actually.
and so Lewis and I and some of the Willing Workers Club, we opened our homes to the Negro young men who were veterans, and we took 5 boys, but we had an attic that was floored, and Lewis put a closet up there and a bathroom, and we put a stairway and an outside entrance for those boys. And I worked at a sorority house, and so I hired 3 of those boys to come as waiters so they could eat. And all those boys, all three of them graduated from university with honors. One of them still living. I hear from him just at Christmas time. he says, I just write it. I said, yeah, I'm still here.
Do you remember his name?
Pardon?
Do you remember his name?
Well, let's see. Bob Weaver was one of them. Carolyn Jackson married one of them. Remember Carolyn Jackson? And I know I have their names down. I have their pictures someplace. I never throw anything away. It's finding it. I can't remember their names. I can see their, but they all graduated from the university.
Do you remember whether it was the 40s or 50s?
Well, they came here on the GI Bill.
So it was right
When
after.
was that?
That would be late 40s.
Yeah, the
Okay.
GI Bill.
So it was late 40s.
There were 5 of them. But we put a floor in the attic and put a bathroom up there. And I was working at a sorority, and the boys ate well. Because anything left over, they would give me whatever they had. And the boys helped Louis and I. There's a lot of things I don't think about it too much anymore, but when I talk to you, I think about what used to be. That's been a long time, honey. My mind gets a little rusty.
What was it like living on Park Street?
Pardon?
What was it like living on Park Street?
The last time I lived on Park Street? Well, let's see now. Well, that's been about 15, 20 years ago, hasn't it? It's been a long time. You were a little girl.
No, yeah, it's been a long time because
I'm trying to think.
I'm in my late 50s now.
I have pictures and write-ups because when I had the open house, the city came out and took pictures, and they said it was the lost house. That was the the heading, the lost house. And I don't know how many people. I just had open house because I wanted to see what I had done to that old house. It'd been empty for a long time. But I can't remember now what year it was, but I know I never threw anything away, so I know I have the pictures and clippings from the News Gazette about that open house that I had, and it was called the Lost House. And I had people lined up down the block coming in to go through the house, and I served tea.
Okay. Why did you move away from Park Street?
Why did I move away from Park Street? And that's not a very happy story. My son, he grew up and he was an alcoholic. And when I'd go home, there would be people there that I didn't approve of. And I got afraid. And first I put locks on my bedroom door. He had a garage in the back. My son was a fine man and made good grades in school and wonderful mechanic. And I let him open up his garage in my backyard. But there was too much drinking going on. And Al Rivers was on the police force, and he told me that the police were watching because it wasn't what was going on out there, drinking and selling liquor. And I had put a lock on my bedroom door because I was afraid living there. But finally I told Stephen that I couldn't live like that any longer, so I moved. My son now is still living, but alcohol consumed his mind and his body, and took advantage of him. Now he's not well at all. He's not well at all, and he joined the service, and but he was just wouldn't leave that bottle alone, and he's been in the hospital several times, but he gets out and starts again. But he's now his son will be here this weekend, and we're going out to Champaign County Hospital to see him. And but he doesn't look like, well, he's not the same person. He's not the same person. Where there's life, there's hope.